Hello, my name is Matt Nahat, and today we are continuing our talk about Archwizard, a game of prestige and prestidigitation by Donald Shaw. This game is currently in development and we are playtesting it, and last video we were just reading the rulebook through and giving some feedback on that, and we are going to finish off doing that today. As we read through the end of the rulebook, but because the audio on the last video was quite quiet, we're just going to quickly do some cliff notes, do the cliff notes version of what we discovered last time, so that we can be sure that those things are heard. Firstly, we'd like to say that the product looks pretty good. It looks like it'll be a lot of fun. Um, we have had a couple of understanding issues.
A few things are in the wrong places
Run
for
places.
comprehension, but
Yeah, but overall, it looks pretty good. Obviously, once it's printed and properly manufactured, it should be a lot better. We talked about how the game was mostly played. We placed meeples onto this map here. The contents of the box are quite exhaustive, with the map, the spell tableau, the summary sheets. We've got lore tokens and mana tokens, companion cards, magic items, adventure cards, location tokens, various resource decks, general, mana, artifacts. We've got day markers or turn markers. We've got combat skill tokens. We've got effectively condition markers. We've got neutral bases for companions and apprentices. We didn't know whether it was needed to have the divination order or bonus tiles as separate things, or whether it wasn't needed to have it actually on the board. We were debating which one it was going to be. Having both is just too confusing. And we talked about having our player components, our player board, our citadel marker, larger and smaller meeples, some companion bases, and some marker cubes. What we discussed last time is that we probably needed more bases that are coloured for each player.
and a lot
And a
more
lot more
marker
cubes
a
that
lot more.
that are also in that same color. And probably that's probably going to be around the 20 mark of each color. We would assume, just based on things. We talked about setting the game up. Oh, by the way, before we move on from this, we felt together that there was too much rules description in the contents section, and that those rules should probably be moved into their own section and then put into an index or glossary at the end. So that's just a real quick note there. Set up an initialization. We didn't really like the word initialization. It doesn't sound like it's a medieval word. Even just a start of play or something like that would be fine. Maybe you could find a medieval word that we could use. I don't know. So setup was fine. We felt that there was a couple of things that could be, the dot points could be the same for amount of players with the divination order, rather than the way that it's formatted here.
So just one example.
Right.
Just have it in the that you've got for 2 players you do this, for 3 players this, for 4 players this.
Right, just as you've done here for the general resource cards, because that's quite clear, quite well done. You said what each player starts with, that's fine. And then you talked about how we get the game started.
We did not really see the point of doing of having with the companion selection.
Right.
Of doing it the way as presented, if you're going to have it all in your hand anyway,
Yeah.
and if you're, but it's fine if you're going to have it in a tableau on the table.
Yeah. So what we were sort of debating, and we haven't made a decision yet, but we'll go through this when we actually do a playthrough of the game, is that we felt that it could be effectively one of two ways. Either you could have them face up in a tableau on the table, and that you can draw those, or potentially be able to draw from an unseen stack, or we're drawing effectively 4 cards into our hands
and picking
two of those rather than how it's written here. So we're not sure which way it's meant to be, but yeah, we'll figure that out as to what we do about it. But probably you need to maybe just clean that up a tiny little bit. The summary was fine. The dawn phase, the main problem that we had with the dawn phase, everything was okay until we got to travel. You said see the travel rules for more, but
we need,
yeah, probably
we need to put the travel rules before the phase rules, just so that the next of it all makes sense, and we have a point of reference.
Yeah, probably it doesn't need to belong in dawn, but probably it needs to come before day.
Yeah, that's
so fair. If it's in between the two, seeing that we've got this thing here saying see the travel rules, you know, between the two, then it's right here. Like this is empty space that we could put that some of those travel rules. Excuse me, and
then daytime will just read a lot cleaner,
right?
Because we had to scroll through about 2 pages.
Yeah, it would be better in a book, but we still think that given that one of your primary things during daytime is moving, or traveling rather,
how to
move before we get to those rules.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty much the only thing in the preparation that we really had too much of an issue with. The only thing that we had a question about was how many rounds we get, because it seemed like there wasn't a very clear delineation on that.
Like, it seems like we get rounds until all the players decide, okay, we're done.
Right. And is that okay? We don't know. We haven't played the game. But if there's meant to be a limit on it, it isn't said anywhere. And if there's not a limit on it, probably that needs to be written anyway. There's not a limit on how many rounds there are, but blah, 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 whatever else. Effectively, everything else there was...
Yeah, I think everything else was fine. It just needs to be repositioned.
Yeah.
But the writing of it is generally okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little repetitive, but that happens in a...
Yeah. And hopefully you've been able to hear our first video to go into more detail about that. But if not, we can always send more written feedback or anything like that if you wish. We came to daytime, and that's where we had the travel issues. But apart from that, we are still in the dark about exactly how this harvesting mana interacts with actions and interacts with travel. If we need to have our marker in an area before we can harvest mana,
because there was one rule that said you need to spend an extra travel point if you don't have a marker, and there was another one that said you don't know where it is without a marker. Sort of thing, the way we were reading it.
Yeah, and Harvest Mana doesn't really reference that, and Harvest Law doesn't really reference that. So something in there around that would be useful, some clarification. We'll obviously, when we get to playing it, decide how we're going to do it. And we thought that you probably didn't need a Harvest Mana and a Harvest Law section. Probably you could just put Harvest Mana or Law.
Yeah, because the Harvest Law phrase little thing is as Harvest mana.
Right.
So
It's exactly the same thing. So probably you can have them in the same
yeah,
area. That's fine. Recruiting characters, we understood.
yeah,
I'm
that was
pretty
perfectly. That
sure.
was perfectly clear to me.
We've got some examples here. I don't know. Maybe we could read the example and see if that was clarified, because we didn't read the examples. We didn't
No.
read any of the examples, to be honest, because we were, trying to do other things. We got the whole recruited characters can't take actions.
We
That was
also
fine.
didn't like the color of the font in that box.
Yeah, it probably needs to be darker.
Yes,
Um,
it does.
well, it definitely needs to be darker.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a real issue, even if it was grey or anything like that, there's a real issue with font and boldness and darkness.
There was also one of the
font
maps,
issues as well.
Yeah, the font. One of the maps had a font had a different font on each side.
Yeah. So yeah, we were just saying that probably it's best to do some research, find a font that you really, really like, that you can use for everything, and have that as part of your trademark for your game. Even if you develop a font, had someone develop a font for it. But there's millions of fonts out there that can be easily downloaded for free. So it shouldn't be an issue.
Just pick one font that really suits what you're doing and that you really like.
Yeah.
And use it for everything.
Yeah. Cool. We got everything there. We had what happens at the end of an adventure. One thing that we did talk about was when we're returning cards to a deck, are we returning them to the bottom of the deck, in the middle of the deck? Are we shuffling the deck? We didn't know what we were doing when we were returning things to the deck. So something about that would be nice. And that came up multiple times. I just want to see what this lore harvesting example says, just real quick before we move on. So during the dawn phase, Minerva placed a lore resource of 4 lore in the forest. She cast Gem Sight and Nature's Bounty. She can't use both spells when harvesting, so elects to use up the Gem Sight spell here, as the Nature's Bounty spell might be useful for harvesting a mana resource in the mountain she has her eye on. She can't spare her wizard to collect lore, so chooses to send her apprentice collecting 3 lore, 2 by the apprentice and 1 extra from the Gem Sight spell. 1 lore is left over and might be harvested in a later action by another player. Okay, so yeah, that doesn't clear what we had as far as how we see it and when we can resource depending on that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll keep on going here.
We were down to dusk, if I recall.
Yeah, I'm just sort of summarizing what we talked about. Distill mana was fine. Study research lore. Expand was fine. Finish. We know that you can choose to finish, just as you can choose to end your dawn phase early and take an earlier position in the next phase. Here was the travel rules. We understood the travel rules once we got there, but they need to be before the day phase, in our opinion.
Yeah.
Resources are always available. Okay, so this is what we haven't read. Just before we go to that, is there anything that I've kind of missed in that quick summary? Obviously, we're not going to pick out every single little thing.
I think those were the main things that kept coming up.
Right.
I think when we were reading it.
Yep. So the coloured things was really important.
I would also actually like to, on the boxes, there was the box with the patterned background.
Yeah.
That needed to be solid.
Right. Yeah.
As well.
So that's part of your formatting stuff.
Yep.
It should be bundled in with your font and formatting.
Like
stuff.
Different boxes for examples and for elaborate expansions and an elaboration on a rule is fine.
Right. But having a patterned background to it was just it made it really hard to read.
Yeah.
Alright, so I think that's most things. And if you had any questions, obviously go
The
back
other
to our
thing-
previous video.
Yeah, the other thing that just because it's got the spell there, calm and clear, a lot of exceptions that you've got in the rules themselves should go on a separate appendix page for the spells or the
Yeah.
artifacts or the companions.
So yeah, generally what we were finding is, the rule book's not too long, for
No.
one.
No, it's not.
But what we were finding is that we were getting half the way through reading a rule, and then it would throw an exception at us without
And
us knowing anything about whatever the exception was about.
Yeah.
And it broke immersion, it broke concentration, it broke focus.
We felt if this was a book I had in my hand, I'd be flipping several pages back
Yeah,
and
it
forth
means
to
that
read
you
it.
stop what you're doing to go and reference something else, which is not useful.
Yep.
So we think, in our opinions, and we both share this, that probably those text boxes that are exceptions should be removed from that general text when you're talking about the rules, and that they should be placed with the exception, whatever in this case, the spell clear and calm, when we go later in the book define, say what all of the spells are in this example, then that exception should be written in that spell rather than in the general text.
Because I would be looking, if I was picked up this and I was looking for someone cast clear and calm, hang on a second, how does that interact with anything? I would go to the spell list.
Spell list, yeah.
Not to the travel rules.
We haven't seen a list of cards or spells, and if there isn't one by the time we finish this book, which I believe there isn't, probably that should be in the rule book.
Either that, or you could do the sort of, I know Stonemaier does it a lot, there's a appendix of a separate book.
A book, yeah, that says these are all the spells,
yeah.
These are all the adventures, or whatever. And then all of whenever you talk about exceptions, you can go to that little booklet and immediately know what you're talking about, immediately know that this is for this, and it should have in that a reference to the rule book for anything that it references. So for this, it would be in a separate spell book, this spell. It would say clear and calm. It would say see travel on page blah, and then it would talk about how it makes a change to travel.
Yeah.
Effectively. That's our opinion again, but it would just make it so much clearer, and it would make it so much easier when you're trying to read big bulks of text to not have to jump around and be confused.
Because again, if you have that second book, when you have that exception, I've got the book open where it was, and I'm not flipping to try and find it and then find where it was.
It means you've
again.
got more contents, but honestly, having a spell book and having, or even just a book of exceptions.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to necessarily be a spell book, but anything that's an exception could maybe go in there, and maybe they could have spells, adventures, companions, whatever, and then list whatever exceptions there are to the rules in there as a whole booklet.
Yeah.
So whichever way you want to do it, and if you don't want to do it, that's okay. But honestly, it would make the game a little bit easier, and you wouldn't be clogging up the text so much.
And having a spell book and stuff like that does also negate the, hang on a second, you've got that artifact over there, can I just see what that does?
Right.
Because you can go into the book that says, and actually read the effects of it to mid-game without interrupting the other player's tableau.
Yeah. Yeah. So lots of reasons for that, but it's up to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I think we can go on to Dusk. So during the Dusk, we hold conclave at the stones, they perform rituals and showcase magical arts to gain prestige. That's the focus of the game, by the way, gaining prestige. Whoever gains the most prestige wins. Characters are then returned to their citadels and players prepare for the next day. If this was the last day, the game now ends and final scoring is performed. Okay.
Yep.
We perform rituals, a single ritual each dusk. See, I like this because we know exactly how many times we can do stuff.
Yeah.
Single. I like it. If you have the magical arts knowledge sufficient for one. So if we don't have magical arts, we can't perform it.
Makes sense, really.
Specific rituals are available at specific circles in a pair of magical arts. Probably this could be written better because it sounds like there is a location rather than that magical arts circles unlock rituals.
Yes.
So, yep. Each produce an artifact, and we said before we had a deck of artifacts that we can have that grant you a bonus of some kind. Performing a ritual may consume mana and generates prestige. The cost in mana to perform the ritual and the prestige earned depends on the circle of magical arts required to perform the ritual. And we've got our little delineation here of what happens. So it's cost 0, 0, 1, 1, 5, 6. Is that right? No, 2 and 2. Okay.
Yeah.
And then mana. Yeah, so that's the mana and score 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 12 prestige.
Yep. Beating on a dead horse with scroll down again. That is actually an exception, and it's in a different box than the exceptions are already that we've seen have been in.
Yeah, so we're reading just about, and so here's an example. We're reading about general rituals here. And then we've got an example, that's fine. But we've got an exception here. Only one golem ritual, for which the artifact is the special golem companion rather than the artifact tile, may be performed for the whole game. And only one of each of the Mighty Works rituals may be performed for the whole game. So that doesn't belong here.
They belong in next to talking about the golem companion.
Right, or the golem ritual.
Or golem ritual, yeah.
Probably, rather than in this box, that sentence, all rituals may be performed once by each wizard,
that actually
should be in the general text.
Yes.
And probably it should say, there are exceptions to this rule, see
whatever.
Blah, blah, blah. The sun's blessing, and so more exceptions and more exceptions.
Yeah.
Okay, conclave. So we've got rituals. We've done that. Then we've got conclave. Determine how much mana you wish. I'm just wondering whether I think one of the things that we were saying before is having lists of things before we define them.
Yes.
Like all of the actions that we can take during the day phase, have a list of them before you define what each of them do. And I think it's the same here.
Yeah.
Have a list of all of the things that you can do during dusk and then define them. Because I think it would just be a little bit clearer that way. Anyway, conclave. How much mana you wish to spend to impress your brethren. 1 mana must be spent on the first circle before spending 1 mana on the next circle, and so on, up to as far as you wish and have mana to spend in each art, and limited to the current circle of knowledge you have reached in that magical art. So that can be written very much better than that.
You may spend 1 mana per each unlocked circle of any given magical art.
Yeah, something.
You may optionally spend or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. We're sitting there going, what? What? The mana expended in this manner is placed on the circle on your player board and stays there for the rest of the game. It stays there for the rest of the game on the circle on your player board.
I don't see a place for a circle like that. If I recall, they had a thing for each They had a there was a Yep, down. Yeah.
So that's magic. This is the player board, and we
Yeah.
said that we needed a player board written on the player board. But so we've got these circles. Do we put the mana on these circles, and the mana stays there?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem.
That doesn't seem. If you're going to put it in a.
I think we should just be putting mana back in the.
If it depends, if there is if the amount of mana that you spent is equal to something, then absolutely keep it on the board somewhere.
Yep. Well, we're questioning that at the moment. We'll read the rest of the rules, and if it does so happen matter,
But I do think that regardless, there has to be a more delineated spot. Right. If you're going to keep it on your player board.
Yep. You earn 3 prestige for each mana you place that conclave. So at each conclave, you earn 3 prestige for each mana you place. Mana placed earlier will score an extra 2 prestige. So it does matter.
Yeah.
I feel like there should probably be a different place other than the player board that we're storing mana spent on prestige. Than on that player board. I think that the player board's going to get really crowded.
And I've played games where you have a lot of things on a flat board. Flick.
Right.
Yes.
If they're just going to go all over the place.
Especially if you're actively pushing things around on the board, which you are.
Right.
You're marking the new circle that you're.
So there's a few ways to do this. You could actually store the mana tokens in a bowl. You could have a big wheel of numbers that only has one number showing, and you just turn the wheel until it shows the amount of mana that you've previously spent.
Yep.
And that's your record, so you don't have to store all of your individual tokens necessarily. Other ways...
If you're going to go with individual tokens, have 2 bowls or something. A bowl have a smaller board next to your board that you don't otherwise touch. You put mana in one token in one of the bowls or one of the circles on there, and then when you at the end of with cleanup, you scooch it all into the spent mana. If you are going to go with putting in leap with keeping the mana cubes.
Yeah. So I think having it placed on the board initially while you're casting the spells is fine.
The other thing that could be done, there's a lot of games that have sort of 1, 5, and 10 tokens.
Right.
That you could do that for mana.
Yeah.
So you have so as it adds up, you just switch out 5s and 10s and stuff.
Yeah, or 3 and 5. But 5 and 10 sounds reasonable. Although I know that mana's kind of a valuable thing, and it doesn't add up very quickly. So maybe 3 and 5 works better in your game.
I just used 5 and 10 because I was playing Gloomhaven the other day, and that's got 1, 5, 10.
Yeah. So we've said a few ways that you can sort this maybe differently. Why we think this is a thing? We've already cited 2 reasons. 1, because they're very easy to flick, and 2, because they're just going to take up so much space, and you're just going to accumulate so many.
And if you need,
there's no reason for it. We don't.
And the other thing is that aside from bouncing off accumulating so many, the more that you have not on the board and not an active play, the more you need to put in the box.
Yep. The final way that I might suggest, and it could be confusing, would be to have a space on the board or on the player board that is like 1 through 10, or however many we think we might get extra, probably 1 through 10.
Yeah.
And you just place one of your mana on the number that's going to be your bonus for the next round,
That would be that way you
and then
that
discard the rest.
that aren't that much because you do have mana placed during earlier ones scores an extra 2.
2.
So you would if you keep one of them there. So you have one tracking your spent mana.
Yeah.
And then you've got your little pile of mana that you've spent this turn.
Right. So
then
it
you
would
just
say
flip
on
it.
that, in that place, it would say mana spent for prestige, earn 2 prestige in subsequent rounds for each point. And then you would just put your mana token on there, or even if you had one mana token filling each of the boxes.
Heck, you could
on
just
there,
use a player cube for
cube
it.
or whatever you want. It would be a lot easier to track. It would be a lot easier to find, a lot easier to count.
Things wouldn't go flick
all over the place. I actually, of these options, that's probably my favorite right now. It might take a minute to just define that in the rule book, but honestly, you've already got a lot there, and I don't think it's going to clog anything up.
And if it's already on your player board, then you're not taking up more room in front of you.
Right. Yep. So that would be my suggestion.
And you can use whatever realistic number.
Yeah. If
course.
10's not enough, obviously have more. But
yeah,
you know the game better than us. We haven't even played it properly yet. But there's our suggestion. Yep. So we're earning 2 extra for each subsequent.
And there is an exception.
More exceptions here.
In the base text.
We don't need that. After prestige demonstrations have concluded.
Clean up.
I don't know if I like that word. After prestige has been earned or
demonstrations does work because in the conclave you're trying to impress and all that, so it might work thematically.
Sure. We haven't used that word.
We haven't used it before, no. But if you define sort of demonstration, if you have demonstration somewhere in here.
Yeah. Probably use it before then, during conclave, say, and thus, make a prestige demonstration or something, and then when you say it again, then it's not quite so.
Yeah.
Retrieve all of your characters, discard any excess mana and lore. We were saying that there was an issue with this rule, this excess mana and lore. So on our player boards currently,
yes, that one.
there was a place that said how much lore you can store between the next full
turn
phase,
which we both read to be you get to keep this much between turns.
Over turns, and once you've gone through conclave and cleanup says we have to discard everything that we haven't used, but that part of the player board doesn't say that. Instead, it says you can keep this amount.
This actually says that too.
Each laboratory expense allows you to retain 1 extra each of mana and lore. Anything in excess of this is lost. So you need to decide which way you're going to say it, because it's far too confusing. If it is that you're discarding everything, then put discard everything. If you can retain anything, first say at the end of your turn or at the end of this phase, you may retain an amount of lore and mana equal to blur. Discard the rest.
Which wouldn't be because this wouldn't actually be a point of confusion, but I do recall further up that we had you have to discard it at the end of dusk.
Yeah, so we've got various conflicts.
Yeah, conflicting rules
about that, and right now I'm pretty sure neither of us knows which way it's meant to be.
Yeah. I don't know.
Anything in excess is lost. All right. Clear any remaining marker cubes from the spell tableau.
Fair enough.
Right.
Any from the artifacts.
Artifacts.
It's reset.
And then examples.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you want us to read these examples and weigh in on them. I don't feel like it's as important.
I still don't know how many if two people can cast the same spell.
I'm pretty sure I read that any spell except for the Golem Ritual may be cast once by each wizard.
Okay. Cool. Just wanted to.
So yeah, all other rituals may be
No,
performed.
that's rituals. This is the spell that you casted at dawn. I'm pretty sure you might be right. I don't recall, but that's just not entirely clear to me as on a first read.
All right. Well, we might revisit that real brief before we finish the thing, and I think it would be worth just reading all of these examples too.
Yeah.
Just going through them as an individual thing.
It would be. This would again be cleared up, but if there was because if I'm looking for it, if there's a spells page, I would,
find it in the spells page. You know what? I think it's important enough, and we'll probably forget if we don't look at it now. So it was dawn.
Yeah,
and you wanted to know if wizards can cast
the same
spell.
Because it does. I know it says you can get your you can cast as many spells as you can cast with no cost.
Wizards will take turns divining new events and everything. Blah blah blah. We generate resources. We divine. We place resources. Blah blah blah. We place adventures. We cast a spell. May only be cast by each wizard once per dawn. Any given spell may only be cast by each. So that says to me so that's probably can be written differently.
Yeah.
Each wizard can cast any given spell once per dawn.
Okay. Yeah.
That clears that up.
Yeah.
But we also, in that, how many rounds do we get to do that? Can you cast infinite spells if you have infinite mana at dawn?
Well, there's no other cost aside from using the inactivity for it.
Yeah, but how many activities do you get?
Yeah.
Are they,
So in theory, you
take turns performing the following activities. May perform one activity, and this is our what we're saying. The first round. And 2 on each subsequent round. We don't know how many rounds there are.
Yeah.
We will let...
Because if you, on a read of that, without knowing how many rounds, we could just keep taking rounds until we've cast everything.
And that might be intended, which is fine, but we need to have that told to us a bit more specifically. All right. After 5 days, the game is over. You now score extra prestige based on renown earned from adventures. Add up the renown from the adventure cards you've collected. We're keeping them in front of us, so it's easy enough to do that.
Yep.
The player that accrued the most renown now earns 3 prestige per point of renown. 3 prestige per point of renown. The next highest earns 2 prestige per point. The third highest earns 1 prestige per point. If there is a tie, all for first, then all gain 3 per point. The next player getting the third place score of 1 prestige per renown. Players tied for second, again, and each player also scores 1 prestige for each leftover lore.
Does that mean that in a more than... let's say we've got a 5-player game going.
Right.
And we have a clear first, second, third, fourth, and fifth.
Right.
Does that mean 4 and 5 don't get any prestige per renown?
Yeah.
Is that intended?
Players tied for second. Each player also. Yep. So probably next
Because
highest, the
that
third
doesn't feel very
highest.
good for end game
So
scoring.
probably in where it says the third highest, probably instead of third highest, you would say each other player earns 1 prestige point per renown.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would make sense to me and be fine. That way you're still getting something.
Yeah, otherwise it does seem like everybody else gets nothing.
Yeah,
And maybe that's intended, but that doesn't feel good.
I don't like that for a final end game score.
Yeah.
End game score, your marker should be moving around that board.
Right. Yep, so we think that that should just say each other player. Each player scores 1 prestige for each leftover lore. And so we've got a thing here. After converting their remaining mana into lore as far as possible. Have we talked about converting mana into lore?
I did see it somewhere.
Alright,
It wasn't entirely clear. I only saw it once. Also, does that mean that if this happens automatically, you should end game final scoring should be convert any remaining mana into lore, then score 1 prestige for each lore.
Right, yeah.
That you now have.
Agreed. The wizard with the highest prestige is now acclaimed the Archwizard. In the case of a tie, the wizard with the largest laboratory wins, with further ties split by the largest library, then apprentices. If it is still a tie, the players share the win. I imagine that that's relatively unlikely.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did see a fun one that said a fun third tiebreaker was whoever's willing to buy a pizza at one point. Doesn't fit this, but I love fun third tiebreakers that are never going to happen.
So I'm just going to go to the start of the document. I'm just going to, so I have to fiddle with this for a minute. I'm just going to find the word convert so that we can quickly find this rule.
You can convert 2 mana into 1 lore as often as required.
So this is the action activity summary, and it says you can convert 2 mana into 1 lore. That's the other way, isn't it? We were converting lore into mana.
No, it was mana. It was mana to lore, but...
Alright, you can spend lore to improve your magical arts knowledge whenever you wish. And we know what the costs of those are. Because...
Yes.
Alright, let's see if there's any more.
Well, there's a few more results. Immediately convert. And immediately convert there. In appendices, okay.
Okay, so these are just spells that do...
Gotcha. That's it's the only mentioned place.
Mana into lore.
Yeah.
Alright. So we don't earn points for mana. We earn points for lore once we convert them.
Yeah.
So like Han said, it would be, instead of writing it like this, you would have...
each player converts their mana into as much lore as they can.
And then earn 1 prestige for each level.
Yep.
Alright, we'll quickly read the appendices. I don't know why this is being a dick.
Well, you still have a navigation bar up.
Ah, yes. There we go.
Yep.
So, appendices. Spell Grimoire, we've got, this is what we were looking at before. When we initially saw, well, for one, this is not formatted particularly well on here. Still not formatted particularly well on here. Oops. We know that this is meant to be all on the same
Spell Grimoire
page.
should be down. Usually I have appendix then appendix title online.
Yeah.
That is just my thing for that. Yeah, they all need to be the same page.
Alright, we'll do that for the moment. It's more difficult to read, but at least it's on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay, we talked about this in the last video, that on a first glance, and this again is up to you, but on a first glance, we were thinking
we
that,
read it in opposite fashions.
right. So we could do, because the circles are going down rather than up.
Because like the way I personally read it was that the circle was a rank. So rank 6 is the lowest. Rank 5 is you've gone up high. You're ranked up sort of thing, all the way to rank 1. But the way this is that circle 1 is
the lowest,
and it go, which is fine as well, but
yeah, it needs to be clearly explained.
that,
and one way that we were talking about that could be, but we read things differently to others, could be that you do 1 at the bottom all the way through to 6 at the top, with earth, air, fire, and water at the bottom. Or you just say circle in in ascending rank or some.
Well, it actually makes a lot more sense now that I've seen the player board as well.
Yeah.
But that was just my.
So we don't know whether that's.
Read.
You feel like that's an issue, but it was on a first thing for us. So, all right, let's have a quick look. We remove resources.
Travel better harvest. I was just
get
going
plus. Oh yeah.
Down Earth.
+1 travel. +1 harvest for a single. Yep. Immediately convert. Gain prestige for each renown.
Look at Berry. Hide and mark 1 resource. Only those with a divination mark a cube. Again, do we need a cube? That indicates we don't need the cubes to find them.
Right. So if it is that people without a divination marker cube can normally find them,
just with an extra travel point.
Yeah. Again, those things aren't clear.
Yeah.
+1 social skill or mimic a trait. Place 2 divination marker cubes on resources. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that is pretty good.
+1 travel point. Ignore travel penalties. Recruit a character at any location. Blows 1 mana each. 1 mana each from up to 3 locations to your citadel.
Move 1 mana from up to 1 mana from each location to your citadel.
I understand why you're saying blows, but
it works thematically, but not technically.
Yeah, +1 combat skill. Place 1 resource. Place on a resource. Yeah, so that's this specific marker that we're doing. Require 1 extra travel point when traveling to the target. Okay. +2 travel to a single character. Place on a valley map. Other players require 2 extra travel points. Immediately convert 1 law into 3 mana. Alright, and 1 character may ignore all travel point requirements to reach a resource. Okay. +1 nature skill. So we've effectively, except for this one, you've got social, combat, and nature skill.
Yeah.
Water walking +1 travel if moving along a river. Okay. +1 harvest for a single group of characters. All other players require 1 extra travel. Immediately convert 1 or 2 mana into as many lore. That seems powerful.
Yeah.
Move 1 mana or lore resource to any river location that doesn't already have that type of resource. May not be cast on the same resource twice in a day. Okay, sure. And then the Ritual Grimoire. So this is now at the end of the game. So these are the things that you're casting at the start
of your turn.
Yeah.
In your dawn.
In your dawn, and these are the things that
dusk.
we're doing at dusk.
Yeah.
So we include cost and prestige value. Goes down again.
And again
it's on 2 pages, but we're
yeah.
less concerned about that. So we get +1 combat skill for 1 adventure per day. Why are we doing that at the end? Is it for the next day?
Well, you cast the you do the ritual to get the artifact,
and then you use the artifact once. Right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you get the artifact, and if I was reading it correctly, you can use you can use this artifact to
Once
per
when you mark it.
yeah
Okay.
once per day
Sure.
because
Yep.
you then removed all your used markers.
Okay. And you're gaining 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 12 prestige for casting these things. Again, well, look, so this is combinations now.
Yeah.
So Earth and Fire, we've got that one. Generate 1 mana once per day.
Is this still Earth and Fire that we're in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Generate 1 lore once per day. A special companion, which is the Golem. Gain 1 extra prestige for each mana you expend at Conclave, and this ritual may only it's the Iron Fortress. So each of the Mighty Works is on 6, so we don't need to go through that.
Yeah.
Social skill or emulate a trait, generate a mana, enchant a magic item, increase your library. Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, place the portal in a valley map location, and yep, the Mighty Work. Generate a mana, enchant a magic item, +2 travel. Increase lab. 1 character per day may ignore travel. This ritual may only be cast. Nature skill. Generate a mana. Generate a lore. Place a resource. Exchange lore and mana 1 for 1. At any time. May exchange lore and mana 1 for 1 at any time.
You can only use them once because once you've used them, you put your marker on them to show you.
Right, but it's any time in any phase. You just
Yeah.
choose to do it once and go bleh.
Yeah, well, you can already do 2 mana to 1 lore at any time.
But this is just 1 to 1.
Yeah, so it just makes it a 1-to-1.
Okay.
That looks fun.
Looks fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, we understand 90% of the game.
I feel like I could put this on a table and play it. You know,
with some caveats.
With some caveats of talking between players and trying to and agreeing on rules.
Right.
Based on extrapolation.
Yeah, and we'll have to do that when we come to playing it, and obviously part of what we're doing is playing it. And we will be showing that on the screen.
We'll figure out how to get that done.
We'll do our best to have the main board visible and the rest doesn't matter as much. And probably once at the end of every turn, we'll probably move the camera around each of the scoreboards.
Yeah.
Or something to show where everyone's up to.
I don't watch a lot of live plays of board games, but the ones I have sort of angle it up over the table.
Yeah, we'll do our best.
So you can see, but they seem to have a lot more equipment than we do as well for that.
Yeah. Obviously, as you can see, we're limited, but so real quick now, we've got a little bit of time. I'd like to go through examples just to read the examples because we haven't done that at all. Just to give you a glimpse of feedback about them. We feel like it's probably not as important as the rest of it, but since you've given us the rule book to talk about,
and the examples are in there.
These are exceptions. So here's a mana harvesting example. During the dawn phase, Radagast, not sure if that should be used. I know that it's a wizard game.
Was it a wizard name before Tolkien?
Maybe, but let's be real. It has been made very, very popular by Tolkien.
Yeah, if it was like a traditional wizard name, and that's why Tolkien used it, maybe you can do that. But
yeah, okay, sure, it's up to you. It's probably not trademarked. I can't imagine that a name can be trademarked.
It would be trademarked, but it does. My first thought is Tolkien.
Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, all fantasy is based off Tolkien. So
okay, he placed a mana resource of 5 mana at the castle during the dawn phase. Now, on his turn during the daytime phase, he chooses to harvest the mana. If he sends his apprentice and a companion to the castle, he can harvest 3 of the mana, 2 by the apprentice and 1 by the companion. We've repeated his name. I don't know. He, though, has also cast Nature's Bounty during the dawn and is in possession of the magic item Eye of Horus. Radagast can only count 1 harvest boosting spell or magic item towards a single harvest action, so since Nature's Bounty only has an effect in locations containing a river, and the castle does not, he chooses to use the Eye of Horus for this action. Further, one of the companions Radagast has available is the Priest, who has a +1 to harvesting in the castle or monastery. Altogether, this is enough to harvest all 5 mana, 2 by the apprentice, 2 by the priest, and 1 extra due to the Eye of Horus, as long as he sends the priest to the castle. You don't necessarily going to be doing that. It's not going to be every companion. These seem very specific examples, and I'm not...
Well, examples can be quite specific, but this one, we don't know about magic items yet. For this example, when this example is...
Yeah, and we've been through the whole book now. It hasn't talked about any of the magic items. It hasn't talked about what, like, given us more
we know they
information on
exist because they were in
spells,
the
what the adventurers
thing.
are.
Yeah.
We need some sort of place to see this. I mean, I could bring them up as the other resources that I have that you've given me. But we should... I don't think...
The way I would personally like to see this book organised, not a criticism on what it is there, is I would probably have a half the stuff that's in the contents of the box, I would put in as a list, all that's of what they are.
Yeah, we talked about that.
And I would put a specific page for each. For the examples that you, because like you've put a lot of how to read this and the anatomy of these cards, put those on a page for magic items, for resource cards and stuff. That's how I would personally like the book to be organised for maximum readability.
Yep. Yeah. There's probably various ways to do it. So what are we looking at? We're looking at spells.
Magic items, this one.
Alright, just so that everybody can see, let's okay, so this is some of the magic items. We've got a Belt of Hercules, we double combat, free divination marker each dawn. That seems pretty powerful. And it also gives social and nature.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
That's a very powerful one.
4 tokens, each provides 1 fight for a single adventure. Helm of Orgain, I think this is a prestige equal to, and I think that's a, what's the name? The other thing.
Yeah.
From 1 adventure per day. Staff of the Magi, convert a mana into a lore.
At any time.
At any time.
Unlimited use.
Right.
The other one was only used once.
Okay. Keep any number of mana and lore at the end of each dusk. Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Depending on how many you've accrued.
And how many you didn't spend.
Right. Obviously, you're spending some to get prestige,
points.
But convert 1 mana into 2 lore once per day. Yep. +1 point of travelling along water, and +1 nature, and whatever this is, travelling to an adventure. Might be, yeah, I don't know.
Again, and we haven't seen a glossary of symbols.
Yeah, I've got one here.
Yeah, but there should be one in the book somewhere.
Alright, so I just want to see if I can see this. No, that's just more examples. Iconography. Okay.
Renown.
Yeah, renown. Yeah. So
And the little fairy is
here.
Fae as a trait.
Yeah. So medicinal, religious, archery is spelt wrong.
Yes.
Fae, musical, chivalry, commerce, wilderness, and heraldry. Okay.
Yep.
Sure.
But that's a perfectly fine list. It should just go into
And they should be formatted all the same.
yes.
These ones are inverted or indented.
Yeah.
All right. Oops. So we were looking at magic items. Is more, and we get the picture.
They're pretty easy to read. I'll give them better with the magic items.
Yeah. I feel like, and I'm griping, right? So let's gripe. I feel like there's too much blank space. Like negative space is an eyesore here. I mean, I'm sure that they're going to have pretty pictures on them at some stage, but still.
I'm just thinking from a playtest perspective. That's exactly the sort of thing that I would.
This is to be expected. But
so when you actually have someone professionally doing it.
Yeah, we're hoping that
it'll look a lot.
The end result is better than this.
It'll look a lot less. I put this together in.
Yeah, so more
Excel.
magic items. Here's some example of companions. We really like that there's multiples on a page.
I would like to point out that gypsy is in fact a slur.
Yes, you were saying that, and we hadn't come up with that. So yes, gypsy is a descriptive title, but it also is in this day and age now a slur.
It is a slur. It has been held at the Roma folk for long. A traveller is a perfectly. It is good. Sort
Caravana.
Of, if you're going for the lake or road, so you're looking at roads, and so traveller would probably work quite nicely.
If there isn't already a traveller.
If there isn't already one, caravan.
Let's have a quick look. No traveller here, and no traveller there.
Mystic might also work if you're going for the more magic-y thing. So mystic or traveller, I think.
Let's make sure that none of the rest of these are slurs. Druid, pilgrim, adventurer, hedge knight, captain, bard. We've already said gypsy, priest, ranger, courtesan.
Yeah.
Those all seem okay.
They're fine.
Alchemist, minstrel, seer, hermit, swordsman, healer, rogue, monk, archer, merchant, and inventor, scout, hunter, scribe, diplomat, fisherman. Fisher?
Fisherman's fine. Well, fisher, yes, fisher maybe, but fisherman is also a sort of
guard, knight, scholar, thief.
Knight and head knight are a bit.
Maybe.
It might be a little similar. I'm not sure, but yeah.
So that's that.
Yep.
So none of the rest of them are too cringy.
They look decently easy to understand with the iconography. What's going on as you've got your specials.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh heck, we can recruit a dragon.
That sounds like fun.
Okay.
I imagine that that's difficult.
Probably.
We've looked at the magic items. Now we've got adventure cards. Alright. Artisan and Gremlins, Lady and the Imp, Catacombs, Carnivorous Vines, Poachers, Espionage, Will-o'-the-Wisps, Spider Beetles, Naiad, and Fairy Feast. They each have the symbols on them. They each have what they give you. They're really good.
Yeah, they're really well set up.
Pox, Charlatan, Sprite, Leprechaun, Unicorn's Foal, Ogre, the Gifted Piper, Mermaid, Black Knight, Troll.
Yeah.
Wyvern, Dryads, Quest for the Grail, Warlock, the Wild Hunt, Centaurs, Brigands, Vampire, Necromancer, Dragon. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And Werewolf, Giant Spiders, Banshee, Doppelganger, Dryads, Cave, Djinn, Hydra, Inquisition, and Brigands.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. They all look fine. Artifact tiles. Okay, so you just got multiple of each.
Cause I guess if you've got 6 players.
Yeah, then they could each potentially have them.
Yep.
Alright.
Makes sense.
Aura cards. Have we
Aura?
seen any of these? I think this might be an expansion.
Okay. Because I didn't see that in our rulebook.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that that's an expansion. And if not, please tell us what they are. That's the map. Bonuses, tiles. See, that's fine.
Yeah.
Even if that was on the board in the first place, that would be alright. But, yeah, I don't know. Something.
Yeah. Just have one space that says bonus tiles, and then you can put the little whatever realm, whatever one it is.
Here's the player board again. Yeah, so it just needs to say player board somewhere nice and prominent, either at the bottom or at the top.
And again put I still think that having the 10 for the mana expended or whatever.
Yeah, we do
track.
think that's much better way of tracking it.
Yeah.
If you're confused about that and you want us to show you, we can do that.
The other thing that I think is the would be the most practical would be tiles of 1, 3, and 5 that you just put next to you.
Yeah, it's possible that either is okay, but I just like a track.
Tracks are nice. I like keeping a track up, but
these are resources.
Character resource printed. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Yep. More of the same.
Yep.
More of the same.
Yep.
Okay. And this was the spell tableau, which we already said.
Yeah.
You could do multiple ways. If you want to keep this format, that is fine. We just think that probably you should have something delineating that we're starting at 1 or starting at 0 and getting better from 1 through to 6 being the final goal.
As I do said as well, having seen the player board properly now, it does make a lot more sense to me that 1 is at the bottom.
Yeah, but just in case. Like, you know, both Hannah and I are fairly adept with board games. We've been playing board games a lot.
Yes.
And for a long time.
Yep.
So, you know, we're going to have a better understanding. Not necessarily than the average, well, more than the average Joe, but not necessarily more than...
Well, we're not board game reviewers or anything.
Not reviewers, no.
So...
I think we were going to do more of these. So...
Yes.
We already did that one. We already did this one. Recruiting example. Philomena wants to recruit a new companion. Placed during the dawn phase, the guard, who has turned up at the city. She sends her ranger companion to the city, who remains there for the rest of the day, plying the guard with drinks and convincing him to come home and work for Philomena. Probably, you know, this is cool. Yeah. But, you know, it might be nice somewhere during the rules to say it's fine for you to tell a story while you're taking your turns. So that this... No, that's a good example, but... Yeah. Okay. The Poacher's adventure has appeared in the forest. Minerva decides for her next action that she will complete the adventure. To do so, she needs to match the adventure's strength. Minerva's archer companion looks like a good choice to send on the adventure, as well as the base 1 point available from any companion. The archer can also count his 1 point of nature skill and 2 points of combat skill The archer's third point of combat skill cannot be counted because the poacher's adventure only allows for up to 2 points of combat skill. Yep, goes a long way for helping the fawn. For a total of 4 points, Minerva's hermit companion can supply the other 3 points. 1 for a companion and 2 more from nature skill. This matches all 4 points of the nature skill specified on the adventure. Minerva sends her 2 companions to the forest and completes the adventure, gaining 3 prestige in the fawn as a new companion. Radagast could have completed the same adventure too. His rogue companion could provide 6 points on his own, 1 for a companion, 2 combat skill, 2 nature skill, and 1 more for the subterfuge trait. Radagast has also cast the Nature's Way spell during the dawn phase, which would have provided the 7th point needed. Righto.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. Maybe we'll talk about these very specific examples at some stage. Example of expanding a library. Sends a merchant companion to the Stones to buy that day's library expansion. His library is currently size 2, so expand it to 3 would normally cost 3 mana. The merchant, however, negotiates to save 1 mana, so the cost is 2 mana. Second adventure example. Necromancer has established himself at the bridge. Philomena, whose wizard's magic arts stand at 1 circle in earth, 3 in air, and 2 in water, decides to bring him down, sending her wizard and her bard. Bard contributes 4 points. 1 for a companion, 1 for a combat skill, and 2 points of social. Wizard contributes 7 points. 3 points for wizard, 2 for air, 1 for circle, and 1 for water. 11 points. This is enough to meet. So successfully completes the adventure. She could have sent her apprentice instead of her wizard if she wished. Would provide 6 points, 2 for the apprentice, and the same 4 points of magical art circles, although she would have to pay 2 mana for the apprentice to channel the wizard's magic. We haven't talked about channeling magic anywhere in the rulebook.
We have not.
So that could be something to make sure that you have somewhere, that the apprentice can use the wizard's magic by, I'm guessing it's paying 1 mana for each circle?
Yeah,
something like that. So that needs to be stated somewhere.
Yes.
Philomena's reward for completing the adventure is 6 prestige, either a free laboratory expansion or a magic item. She elects to get a magic item. Okay, example of finishing. Minerva sent all her characters out on action. There's no more she can do. So on her turn in the next round, she chooses the finish action. She lays a wizard piece down at the stones to show the wizard has gone to conclave. She takes her turn order piece from the daytime turn order track and chooses to place it on the 3rd space on the dawn divination order track. She decides the extra law would be more valuable to her than going 1st or 2nd. Alright, probably in this example of finishing, it would be nice to have the caveat that other players can't do certain things once that she has done this.
Now no other player can choose to pass. Or whatever
it was. We can't remember what it was. Yeah.
Yes.
But something is not allowed as soon as someone finishes.
Yes.
You'll remember what it is. Worst example of travelling. The citadel is the one next to the forest. Radagast Wizard has divined that the rogue companion can be found in the city. Normally, Philomena would not be able to recruit the rogue until the 3rd round of the daytime when she gets a base of 3 travel points. The city is 2, plus 1 extra to find the rogue.
So it seems like the intent is that you know that you can find them.
But you spend an extra travel point.
Yeah, seems like that is the intent.
Okay. Probably could just be a bit clearer. If, however, Philomena casts the water walking spell during the dawn, characters can reach the rogue in the 2nd round as she can trace a path to the city that follows a river. If instead Philomena had cast the spell haste, she could even send 1 character to recruit the rogue on the 1st round. Alright. Second example of travelling. Minerva's citadel is the one next to the bridge. She has placed the friar companion on the adjacent monastery, so she only needs 1 travel point to reach the friar. Philomena's wizard has cast Stormcall, and Minerva has not cast any travel-affecting spells. Even though she is right near the friar and knows exactly where to find him at the monastery, she'll not be able to reach him until at least the second round, when she has 2 base travel points available due to the 1-point travel penalty caused by the storm. Yep. Third, more complex example. Alright. Radagast Citadel is the one between the mountain and the castle. He wishes to reach 5 mana that he placed at the stones during the dawn phase. The mana resource is, however, under the effect of a conflagration spell. Yep. Radagast has cast the Road One spell, and it is a second round of daytime, so travelling by the road to the adjacent village and then onto the stones. He has 2 base travel points. I'm not sure whether all of this is really necessary. I think people can probably figure it out.
1 or 2 examples of something is good. But that's like
having this huge
that's a page of examples.
Nope. One or 2 examples at the most.
Yeah. You only need 1 example of travel, I think.
Yeah, and probably in your example of travel, it might even be worth calling out some of the things that can affect it.
Yeah.
In your example. So
using...
Say that they've got to move 2 hexes normally, right? So you would put they would be able to do so on the second round, right?
Yeah.
And then have, however, if they had cast haste, they'd be able to do it in 1 round. If they had cast river, they'd be able to do it in. If someone else had cast.
Yeah. So if you scroll down for a sec, using that one might be that one's actually quite a good one to show that you can affect things with, Stormcall.
Right.
And that Clear and Calm would have prevented that.
Yeah, I just think a list. So you would have the base travel.
Yeah.
So without the Stormcall, right, needs 1 point to reach the fire.
Yeah.
Right. Then you would have ways to affect that, and you would list the spells that would speed it up, the spells that would slow it down, so that all of them are in the list, and just have this spell would make it 2 more movement. This spell would make it 1 less movement, blah, 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 blah. Or travel, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, that's up to you. Ritual example. She has pushed her magical art up to the 5th circle, and her water up to the 4th circle. This enables her to perform Scrying Pool. She spends 1 mana to perform the ritual and gains 6 prestige. She collects Scrying Pool artifact, 1 resource. Yep, nice and simple. Thank you. Conclave. Radagast has reached the 2nd circle in the Earth magical art, and the 1st circle in what he spends 2 mana to show off his abilities in these arts, putting 1 mana each on the 1st circles of both Earth and Water. He could also put the mana into the 2 Earth circles he has reached. It doesn't make a difference. This scores him 6 prestige. The next day, invests enough to move up 1 circle in each Earth and Water. He then spends 3 mana, the most that he can, placing them in the remaining Earth and Water circles he has reached. He scores 9 prestige for the newly spent mana, and also 4 prestige for the mana invested the previous dusk. Future days, this mana will score a further 10 prestige for Radagast each dusk. So it sounds like that track is going to need to be really big.
Yep.
Again, if you're talking about this amount of tokens that are just lying on a board, that is not good.
No.
So I would put a track of
that is
20 or...
That's 5 tokens lying on a board by turn 2.
And you're going to have to... Right, in 2 turns.
Yeah, that's 5 on the board, and each player can do that.
Yes.
Not
okay.
You're going to need an alternate method of either a really big track or chits.
Yeah.
With numbers or numbered chits, and maybe 10 is not a ridiculous number.
Maybe it is not, if we're reading that example correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, you're gonna want chits or something that's not the actual resource you're using on the map itself.
Agreed. That's all of the examples.
Yeah.
So now we've sort of given you a bit of a feedback as to the game and the rule book. Overall, we'd both like to say, I think, I mean, I shouldn't speak for Hannah, but I mean, I think overall the game looks relatively easy to learn.
Doesn't look overly complicated.
Right. We've delineated which rules could be moved and which could be stated a little bit clearer.
Which can be
things
sort of
to
culled
format.
a little bit.
Yeah, format differently and maybe different places to put things. But overall, we're looking forward to playing the game.
Yeah, definitely.
At the start of that video, we'll talk about what we've decided
With a few of
with
those
each
conflicts.
of these conflicts and stuff. And hopefully that's in the spirit of the game. We'll try to do it in the spirit of the game as much as possible. And then we'll show as much as we can of the gameplay, and we'll also probably at the end of each round talk about why we've made the decisions that we made.
And maybe if there's anything that was confusing during that round, we can address it then.
Yep, so that will be a very long video. But such is life. We hope that you're getting something out of this, and please don't take any of our constructive criticism as complaints or personal insults. There's a lot of work that's gone into this, and it's looking
very clear that the work that's gone into all this.
It's looking really good. So we want to play it. I think these things generally are relatively minor, and just little tweaks will fix things.
Quality of life stuff.
Right, quality of life stuff. Yeah, and just making sure that that everyone understands and things. And formatting, you know, everyone likes different formats. We're not all the same. Excuse me, and it's all in the end. It's up to you which way you go.
I feel like as long as there's a index at the end, index at the
Agreed.
end is not quite right, then then you're fine.
Yeah, yeah. I think my biggest issue, right, out of everything is that we've got all of these text boxes in the middle of the text with individual rules for individual things. So I would remove them. And then to make that worse than it is, you haven't got those things in a list at the end of the document.
Yeah.
Like, so there should be this, like an FAQ section or something with each of the spells.
Because you've already got it for spells and rituals.
Right.
Put magic items, companions.
Or magic items and companions, yeah.
In there as well. And then make a note under each of those things of these exceptions.
Yeah.
And that would be fine.
I think that would make it a lot of sense. And like Hannah said, just some sort of glossary or index or other thing that has page number references to each of the rules inside of the document. And I think if you're going to be making this as an ebook, which we don't know if you want to do that, but if you are going to do that, probably obviously make them into clickable things. We can help you with that.
Even. Yeah.
We'd be willing to do that. Anyway, good game. At least on a quick read. We'll be trying to play in the next little while. Obviously, you won't know how long it is because, you know, the magic of the internet. But thanks for allowing us to play test this game and give you all this feedback. Hopefully it's helpful.
Best of luck with the development.
Yes. All the best.
All the best with the development for it.
And we'll be back whenever we play the game. Catch you later.